and they vowed never to return until the humans would awaken to their light again and remember who they were and what they were here to do. So it was around the time, that I was awakening, around the time of my third awakening, with light language, and they came back and they said, "You're ready. You're ready to remember all of this because you're also ready to reclaim your responsibility in all of this."
Welcome to Conversation for the Soul. I'm Linda Christine. Today I talked to Fabiene Lui. Oh my gosh, this gal is a powerhouse. She has such a profound and deep knowingness about her. She just graces through all these subject matters like it's just second knowing for her. We talk about shadow work. We talk about the situation in Australia the past few years, and we know that's been a hotbed for the C word. And we talk about, the dragons. We have some exciting dragon stuff coming up. She does a little bit of a dragon card pull, and she shares with us a beautiful piece of light language that is Syrian and dragon combined. I think you're really going to like it. So please like, share, subscribe. This is how we get these beautiful stories out there, and these stories are magnificent teachers. So like, share, subscribe, and here's Fabiene. Welcome, Fabiene. So nice to have you here today.
I'm so excited, Linda, for this opportunity to connect with you and really remember who we are. I'm so intrigued by this connection because, we were talking about this a few moments ago about how spontaneously and how intuitively we were led here together. So I'm really excited to see what unfolds.
Every time Spirit nudges me towards a person, it's always an amazing conversation. So I'm very excited to learn more about you. So tell me how your awakening transpired. Did you have multiple wake-ups, or was there an event that kind of triggered it for you? What happened?
Yeah, I love that you're asking me that question because I was checking with Spirit and my guides this morning about what are we going to talk about? And they said, talk about the 3 distinct phases of your spiritual awakening.
I love it. They must be having a conference up there or something.
Absolutely. Of course they do, right? They love to have a chat too. So the first spiritual awakening I had was in my mid to late 20s. I was living in London. I was single. I was having the time of my life, as you do in London, as you know, lots of shenanigans. But I was deeply unhappy. I was probably at the most depressive stage of my life that I've ever experienced. But I didn't always know that because I was having so much fun. And sometimes when you're not conscious, you think fun is happiness, right? And it wasn't until the global financial crisis happened, I was made redundant, and I was on a sponsored visa with my company. So being made redundant meant I had to leave the country within 30 days. So that came as a huge shock to me. But at the same time, I also realized it was a wake-up call from the universe and a real help call, because I was just ready to leave and do something different because I was just in this spiral of, downward spiral in London. So I left and I made the decision to base myself in Singapore and travel around Southeast Asia for the year instead of going home. I was born in Singapore, so I have a lot of family there. It was very easy for me to be there and then travel and take time out to really reassess, who I am, what I wanted to do, and just kind of decompress from London life. So I did that, and I met a Filipino man who was a shaman who ran a raw, organic spiritual retreat in the island of Palawan with his partner. So they invited me to come out for 10 days to do a retreat and teach. He taught a modality called inner dance. And I had a session with him in Singapore prior to going to the Philippines, and it was really amazing. He unlocked my third eye, and he helped me shift all of this energy that I'd just been imprisoned in for so long. So I knew there was something there, and I really wanted to follow whatever path was being illuminated for me then. So I went to this 10-day retreat, and they offered raw food or the option to only have the juice of young coconuts as a detox. So I did that for 10 days. I only drank the juice of young coconuts, which is delicious, right? It's so easy to do. It's yum. And it was really hot there as well. So I didn't really feel like eating anyway. So it was a really good way for me to just get everything out of my physical system too. And whilst I was there, I reconnected to what he calls the inner dance. And it's really just reconnecting to your flow, your energy, the truth of who you are energetically. And it was beautiful. It was, reconnected to all of these hand and body movements that were so gentle, that felt like a little bit like Tai Chi. I was doing I was making balls of energy and then sending it away and then clearing space for myself. But not only was I healing myself, I was activating myself. So I remember in certain sessions that we did, I unlocked a portal, right? I physically had my hand in the air and made the action of unlocking a door or unlocking something. Huh. And what came flooding through was a remembrance of a multidimensional aspect. Now, I can only express this now because I've connected the dots backwards. Back then, it didn't make any sense to me. I just knew I was doing something. But from what I can see now and understand now is I was unlocking a multidimensional aspect of myself from my cosmic lineages. I believe it was my Sirius lineage. And I requested a piece of paper and a pen because I really felt like I needed to write. And I started just what felt like scribbles across the page. My eyes were closed. And then I was drawing these diagrams. And then I was so profoundly happy, and I burst into tears and I said, I found it, I found it, I found it. And when I came out of that session later, I looked at that page. It did look like a language. Again, didn't understand what it was. But that was really the first unraveling of, this self, the divine self that I was just rediscovering, connecting to. And after that, my hands wouldn't stop moving. I was doing all of these movements as though I was coding with my fingers and just continuously unlocking parts of myself slowly, subtly, and powerfully sometimes. So that continued for a few years. And then I kind of got caught up in corporate life again. I was kind of resumed life back home in Melbourne. And then when I started my dream job, so a couple of things happened. I became vegetarian, and that changed things for me energetically. I also quit drinking, which dramatically changed things for me energetically. It really allowed me to clear my field and be very, very, have more transparency and clarity about energy and how I was interacting with energy and everything else around me. So 3 things happened that I manifested within like 5 months. I got my dream job, I found my life partner, and I bought my first property. So I knew my life was really, quantum leaping in all the ways that I've been really manifesting. So it was beautiful. And then my partner and I, my now husband, had our first child. We had a boy, and it was a difficult birth, and I experienced birth trauma. But through the birthing process, as I experienced the birth portal, I was also rebirthing myself. Didn't know it at the time, but I also understood that something really big and profound had happened for me, not just with the arrival of my child, who I have so much karma with. Oh my goodness, that's a whole story unto itself. But when I was ready to really unpack my birth trauma, I sought a spiritual coach, somebody that I had done some healing work with previously. And I embarked on a 6-month journey with her to do some inner child healing, to really just reclaim my gifts. And I didn't understand what we would be doing at the time. And it happened all so quickly and rapidly. And I think she didn't realize too what would transpire, because I unlocked and awakened so quickly. When you have that desire, that deep devotion and commitment to self, to really go there, it happens like that, right? So I did that work with her, and all of my intuitive gifts that I have always known have been there really came online for me. We did work with the Akashic records, and I was able just to see so much and know so much and experience so much. All of a sudden, I just had such a deep knowing about everything, the remembrance of so many lifetimes, the way that I've traversed this universe. My soul journey has been, the immensity of this soul journey all came rushing back to me. So I had a lot of karma play out with this coach as well, with this teacher. So we ended the coaching program before the time was up. And that was really purposeful, because what that allowed, and it was confusing for me at the time, because that untethering left me very, very confused and lost. But I also understood and accepted that it was purposeful because it allowed me to stand in my own power without any codependency. And that's when the third awakening really happened. So then I had my second son, and I had him in 2020, March of 2020, when the world was going into lockdown. Melbourne was going into lockdown for the first time. 3 days after he was born, we went into lockdown for the first time. So it was all happening. And I remember laying in bed, he was probably about 6 months old when he was starting to eat more and be less sort of attached to me physically. And I remember laying in bed, and I just connected to these communities on Facebook who were doing gridding work around the earth. And I was so attracted to them and what they were doing, because they were talking about the new earth. And something kept nudging me and going, you need to be a part of this. Like, you need to come back to yourself and do the work now, because you're ready. Your baby's a little bit more settled. You're ready. And I was like, yeah. And I remember lying there going, I don't want to be left behind, right? So I was like, I'm going to make a commitment to myself. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do whatever it takes. So then I connected with this community, and they used to meet in the astral every night and do grid work around the earth and repair the grid lines and all sorts of things, right? Things I didn't really understand, but I went. And then I was led to an app called Clubhouse. And from there, which is an audio social media app, that you can create rooms in there to create conversations. And there one day I was driving home, I turned on Clubhouse, and I was searching for a room, and I just randomly picked one. And I was listening to it, and people were doing light language transmissions. Didn't understand it at the time, but Spirit was like, listen to this. I was driving down the freeway at 100 kilometers an hour, and suddenly my third eye was activated. I felt a laser beam of light going into my third eye, and my eyes were really rapidly blinking because I was being powerfully activated. And I was saying to my guides, this is not safe. I'm driving down the freeway at 100 kilometers an hour. Like, is this okay? And they said, go with it. We'll keep you safe. Keep going. And then when I got home 40 minutes later, I burst into spoken light language expression. I've never spoken that language before, and I couldn't stop it. I kept speaking to myself. My hands were moving all over the place. So it was a very powerful activation. I was like, wow, something is happening, and this feels really good. And I'm going to keep letting it happen. So then afterwards it stopped, and I sort of gave feedback within that room, and I said, you guys just activated me, and I really want to share this expression that has arisen within me. So I spoke, and as I spoke, I recognized the language of Lemuria. And that was really the first time that I reconnected to my spoken light language expression. And from there, that really has been so transformative for me. Light language has been the modality and the tool for me to really heal myself and really activate myself and others, because now I understand that I am an Arcturian activator that has come to this life in this human form to activate others and help them awaken to their own divinity. So
now with, the word activating kind of carries a little bit of duality for me, in the sense that I feel like people have to want to be activated to activate themselves, but you could be the conduit to assist in bringing that through. Is that how you
Absolutely.
look at it? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the thing with the language that we have in this 3D world. It is very dualistic and very, there's so many gaps and holes in the way that we are trying to express ourselves, isn't it? So,
Oh, and horrible
um,
words too that we just are
absolutely.
programmed to say our whole life.
Yes, exactly. So yes, I am here as a guide to guide you to your highest potentials if you're ready
Mm,
to awaken and remember your mastery, because we were born masters in this body. There is nothing that we don't already know.
yeah.
It's just a choice. It's a very simple
It,
choice to say yes to it.
a friend of mine is a flight attendant, and she goes, if you think about it, everybody, and she'll be in the airport and she'll look at everybody. And she goes, if you think of it, everybody here in the airport is an ascended master to be here on this planet at this time. And it's like, oh, wow, that's kind of funny to think about, but it's true in a sense, don't you think?
Absolutely. And I think if we can really start seeing everybody as that,
Yeah.
masters that are just here to remember who they are, in their own unique expression of love that they're here to show up in, right? Because we're not all here to do the same thing. We have a unique aspect of self that we are here to come and share, remember and share. And if we can see people in that light, then I think it would just be so much easier to accept everybody, to love everybody, and to really build the community that we're dreaming of and that we are building currently. So
Yeah, yeah. So, what does your husband think of all this?
yeah, when so we met at work. We worked in the same team actually, and the day I met him, I was like, oh, okay, there he is. And then a few days later, I knew that he would be my life partner.
Mm.
He took a little longer to come to that conclusion. I think because we literally worked in the same team. We sat next to each other, only 3 meters away. So it was just very close for comfort to kind of even entertain a relationship when I just started the job and all of that. But I really knew that he would be the one that I could grow with, that we could grow together, and he would slowly come into his own, with me leading the way and guiding, because he hadn't woken up yet. So he's been so supportive. He hasn't, in the beginning, when I said I really need help, spiritual healing to deal with all of my trauma, the birth trauma. He was so supportive. He said, I don't understand any of it. I accept it. I accept that's who you are. Go for it. I'll do whatever it takes to help you navigate this. And the more and more that I have shared of my journey, especially of light language, he has now awakened to his own mastery and is slowly wrapping his arms around all of it. So it's been a really, challenging at times, of course, but a really beautiful. I'm so grateful that we found each other.
Oh,
I'm really
that's
grateful because
beautiful. That's
it
beautiful.
is it is hard to you don't always find the one that you can journey with in this
Yeah,
way.
yeah. So, wow, Australia's really been kind of like the hotbed on the planet for the last 3 years, hasn't it? I mean, it just feels like there's been so much more, and maybe this is just my American viewpoint, so much more intensity over there with everything that y'all went through with COVID and lockdowns and all of that. Um, I wonder why Australia is such the focal point. And I kind of feel like it might be because of the Aboriginal, Indigenous people. A lot of folks believe that they were the first seeders of the planet. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there, really. Because and Uluru, so Ayers Rock, or that's the sacred monolith that's in the middle of Australia, is really the birth portal of, I guess, human consciousness and where we were seated. And the sacredness of all of that has been so, it's been consecrated and desecrated. Is that I don't, what's the word I'm looking for? You know the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, yeah,
Destroyed.
yeah.
Um, and all of the ways that the Indigenous people have been just their culture has been shattered, and all of that. How they took away their children, and so it's really, again, the way that the false matrix has imprisoned our sacredness, which is why I think, with all of the control and the manipulation that happened during COVID, it was most concentrated here because the energy, the origin essence is here. So we've experienced that in the most harsh ways. I mean, even now, like we're in the 4th year of COVID, and they're still kind of pushing things. And so earlier this year, I thought, maybe I should get a part-time job, get back into not corporate necessarily, but we've got financial goals that we'd like to achieve. So I applied for a corporate job and I got it. But when I went to read the employment contract, there was 2 pages of COVID requirements that I had to fulfill, being
Lord.
vaccinated, et cetera, et cetera. And I just couldn't in good conscience sign it, of course. And so I went back to them and said, look, is there any flexibility on this? And there wasn't. They took a very strong stance on it. So I couldn't accept the role. And, on paper, this was perfect job. This was everything, the scheduling of it, the money, the job itself, perfect, right? But obviously the universe has a different path for me to take. And they said, you can't take this because your work is doing this. Your work is showing up in your light, sharing your truth, sharing this, illuminating the path for others who are awakening too. Bring your brothers and sisters home. This is what you're supposed to be doing. So that was another wake-up call for me.
Oh, they never stop coming, do they? It's all such beautiful unfoldment, as it all happens.
Yeah.
I glanced through your Facebook profile a little bit, and I noticed that you did something with shadow work. Shadow is so huge right now. I think I'm going through my 15th million shadow of this particular thing that keeps coming up for me to look at, and it's always from a different point of view and a different angle. Have you noticed that with a lot of your clients, that there's just these reoccurring shadows that just keep coming back? And
yeah,
I get the sense that they never really go away. They just kind of get diffused, or do they go away?
They do. They do. And I think, so a couple of things. We've been on this karmic wheel of reincarnation for eons, right? As humans, in this aspect of the soul fractal that comes back to Earth School. We've literally been stuck on a karmic wheel of reincarnation, which is why the shadows feel so ingrained and so embedded, because it takes so much momentum to actually clear and really integrate those shadows back to wholeness, back to self. So I totally understand what you're saying there. But I think also when I look at the karmic cycles and the way that we're really able to transcend these cycles, it is changing. Because since 2020, there has been a really intentional shift in the way that the human collective has come together, the ones who really want to awaken, the ones who are awakening, the ones who are leading the awakening. There's been enough of that momentum to push us over that hill, push past that cusp. And we're already there. So because there's been enough of us, we are starting to really cleanse away those grids, those old grids of being stuck. So the energy work, the shadow work feels a little easier. It doesn't always feel easy. It's easier than I would say, from generations ago, where it took real dedication and commitment to one modality, where you only had access to one modality, one path, following a master and guru to really shift something, right? That's completely changed now. The new paradigm is you are your own master. Be your own guru. That is the change. That is the shift. So the shadow work is easier. It's changing, but we still have to do it. And I think people get stuck on, oh, we're just so focused on the healing and the healing. There's so much healing. There's so much healing. But through the healing, there's powerful activation too. We are so used to being in pain. We don't know what to do beyond it. What do you do beyond it? Our capacity to be happy is so much smaller than our capacity to be in pain, because that's our normal programming, the usual programming. So we are rewriting and recoding this paradigm to really create greater capacity for happiness, joy, and abundance as we are healing and integrating the shadow self. That is the difference this time.
Do you think, you mentioned something about we're at the tipping point, or we've gone past that. How do you get any intuitive nudges on where we're going with this new earth, or how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, my husband asks me this all the time. It's like, oh, you talk about this new earth, but like, the earth that we're living on now isn't getting any better. Like, we're still hurting earth and we're still polluting and all of this stuff. And it's like, so what's this new earth that we're building? And I was like, that's kind of really hard to explain, because it feels like this new earth is much more energetic than it is physical. So we are the blueprints for the new earth have already been established, right? That tipping point has already been reached. That conscious decision to build the new earth has already been reached. So we're already at the point where the ones who are really contributing to this expansion and this ascension process are already building and using the new blueprints, right? Which is really just the restoration of our divine blueprint, our original essence, as we work with the Divine Mother to also restore her physical and light body. So we still have to be here, but it feels like the more that we are ascending and transcending this stuff that we've been healing through, we are working on our crystalline bodies. So the more that we work on that to crystallize our light, the more we are also crystallizing the new earth. And it feels like we are moving towards that, a lighter, less dense existence as we rise into the 5D consciousness and state of being. So it's kind of hard to understand or see the connection or build that bridge at the moment, because we're still so dense in here. But many of us are already working in the 4D, 5D planes. It's just not tangible at times. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you kind of, I feel like we vacillate between all of it. We're here and
Absolutely.
here, and then we're down and we're up. Some days I actually become invisible, which is interesting. I just had a conversation on a podcast last night about going through the checkout at a grocery store, and the checkout clerk wasn't even like cognizant I was there, just bagging my stuff. And I'm like, this is really weird. So I don't, maybe that's kind of foreshadowing what's to come, that we will have reached this consistent level of being in 5D or whatever. And those who have not put in the work to get to that space just won't even see us anymore.
Yeah. And it's so what they're showing me, what they have shown me before. So in the same way that Lemuria and Atlantis were on Earth, or felt like it was on Earth, or there are portals here that still lead to Lemurian pieces of Lemurian Atlantis. There were parallel. It was a parallel universe or existence. There was where the veil between here and there was so thin and so close. It felt like it was here. And I think it's the same with the new Earth, the 5D existence and consciousness, is that we are building it here, but as it's fully comes to completion and we are ready to really shift there, we will naturally just be there and pass through that veil, whilst the others perhaps remain in the 3D to continue their
Wow.
journey.
That's the best explanation I've ever heard of Atlantis and Lemuria. That
Yeah,
makes complete sense to me. Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So tell me what else you've unlocked with your Lemurian lineage.
It was interesting because I didn't stay with my Lemurian language for very long. It was an initial, the most I remember about Lemuria was that how much fear I had about the fall of consciousness and the fall of Lemuria. I remember standing there in total fear and in denial and attachment when that wave came to cleanse Lemuria. And I didn't want to leave because I didn't want to accept my fall of consciousness. And it took me, I remember it was over Easter, I think maybe 3 years ago, 3, 4 years ago. And I really had to navigate all of these feelings of attachment and non-acceptance of my responsibility in that experience, in that journey. And I think that, in part was very connected to how we are here now. How have we contributed to the fall of consciousness in the human collective? And how are we arising from that? Because it's in the true acceptance of something, in the true acceptance of your responsibility. And again, responsibility has that taint of, linear and 3D language, right? But in the acceptance of that, how are you reclaiming the loving wisdom of that experience for you to heal, integrate, and ascend? So it was really just, again, collecting all of my shadows, accepting all of my shadows, and then working through all of that. So once I did that, the dragons came through.
Ah, love the dragons. I just want to add, what I'm working on now for Shadow goes back to my Atlantean issues with abandonment and not being good enough. So it's interesting how that stuff comes up. Yeah, dragons. Ooh, let's talk about dragons. I love that.
Oh, my love for dragons runs deep. So my dragon came back in a meditation session again about 3, 4 years ago. I felt something in my back, and as I really went into that energy, a dragon really emerged. The wings first, and I was like, "Oh, I've got wings! Oh, awesome! I've got wings!" And I was like, "Oh no, something else is coming out!" And this huge dragon came out. This royal red dragon, which is so big. I was like, "Wow, who are you?" And we had really this really beautiful communication about how we had journeyed before, in the origin times, where dragons really were in the physical on Earth and were the guardians of the Earth and were birthed from Gaia's earthly elements. They were birthed for the Earth to be her guardians and to be the companions of humans. So this was at the time where humans were kind of rising in their power, and they misused the dragon magic. They misused and abused the deep, intimate relationship of the dragon riders, and misused the dragons for war, for battles that the dragons didn't want to be part of. So when we really went after these wars and everything, the dragons hid. They managed to escape humans, the ones who were lucky enough to escape, and they hid. And they hid themselves in Hollow Earth, in various places in Earth. They went to sleep, and they vowed never to return until the humans would awaken to their light again and remember who they were and what they were here to do. So it was around the time, that I was awakening, around the time of my third awakening, with light language. And they came back and they said, "You're ready. You're ready to remember all of this because you're also ready to reclaim your responsibility in all of this." Right? So what I have since observed and witnessed is that a lot of people are experiencing the return of their dragons, because the integrity of their heart light, their heart love, their divine love, is intact now. It has that honor, it has that commitment to unconditional love, it has the integrity of true creation from a divine loving essence. And that's why the dragons have returned, to help us again, to share their wisdom, to help us cleanse and transmute, and to help us rise in our power. The dragons are so clear in their truth and will show you exactly who you are, and help you to really reclaim that. There is no turning back. There are no excuses. It's real tough love with dragons sometimes.
Yeah.
They don't stand for fluff and nonsense. They certainly don't look like fluff and nonsense. So, and they really help us to work with our elemental magic as well. So fire for me is my element, even though in my zodiac and horoscope aspects, fire is not my element. But as an Arcturian activator, the fire element is really what I embody in my being. So
those dragons are everybody's going to be sick of me saying this story, but you've never heard it, so I'm going to just do a Cliff Notes version of it. I was at a full moon breath ceremony, where as I was doing breath work, I kept getting called to move closer and closer to the fire, and my pelvic floor felt heavy, like I was going to give birth. And sure enough, I gave birth to 7 dragons, each one the color of the chakras. And I bawled for like hours because it was like my babies were back and I hadn't seen them. It was like a reunion. It was so beautiful, and sat with it for 7 months going, what do I do with this? And then finally one day I was on a podcast like this, and the guy made this dragon sound, and it did something inside of me, clicked something, and all of a sudden I knew I was going to be painting and doing dragon readings, painting the dragons that came forth in the readings for people. So yeah, that was pretty wild. And when I connect with a person's dragon during a reading, the love is so overwhelming. It's like the closest thing to source love that I have ever felt. It's just undescribable. And dragons were never in my awareness. No interest in them, nothing. So it's interesting how they're coming forth now.
When I was 20, I really had this idea that I really wanted to get a dragon tattoo. So I did. I got one. It's on my the front of my kind of belly there.
Is it red?
On the right side. No, it's not. It's just a black ink one. And I had no idea why I wanted this dragon. I was like, I just need a dragon, right? And then when my dragons came back, I was like, oh, this is why I have a dragon tattoo. Like I already had these signs, these hints, these tips from my guides. It's like, soon you will come to the awareness of this. So it's so funny and it's so interesting. And I just love connecting the dots backwards when you come full circle in something and you go, oh, these are all the things, in a very non-linear way that have allowed me to come full circle in something. And it's so beautiful to recognize yourself and remember yourself when you do come full circle. And then you keep going around, rather than say.
And it's such a beautiful message. I mean, if you can work through that pain, on the other side, you're going to see how beautiful it is. And what a great teacher it was.
And that's the other
all
thing
the dots
my guides. Yeah, that's the other thing that my guides wanted me to say today is that pain can be so transcendental, right?
Mm,
And we are taught, we are conditioned to ignore pain because,
yeah.
hey, just get on with it. Something else better will come along, get on with it. But pain is so purposeful. And this is the crux of shadow work. This is the essence of shadow work. When you can go into your pain and understand the lesson of love that is arising for
Mm,
you to reclaim in your power, that is true healing. That is the shadow work, right?
mm,
What is a shadow but a blockage of light that's being projected, right? So when you remove that block, when you remove that obstruction, the light reappears. It's just that simple. So,
yeah.
when we have to reclaim those pieces of ourselves, those broken, ignored, neglected pieces, they are a part of you. It's just like ignoring an arm and a leg and saying, I'm whole.
Yeah.
Your body just doesn't do that. So why do we do that energetically? So that's why I believe, the work that we do with a higher self that gives us those hints, those tips, those pieces of the puzzle, and doing the work with our inner child and doing the work with ego is so important.
Mm,
Ego, again, such a beautiful aspect of self that is here, an important part of why we are here, how we
yeah.
are here, in order for us to perceive ourselves in this duality and understand the duality and how to navigate into non-duality, right?
Yep.
But it's a really mind-boggling dichotomy because if you get caught in the mindness of it, the thinking of it, it's really hard to understand. But I always say, like, breathe through your heart, think through your heart. That is where the truth really resides for you. But
Mm,
these aspects of self are there for you to navigate yourself and find your truth. Don't look for it anywhere else. It resides in your heart through your
mm.
team.
Fabian, you are a powerhouse. You know that? You are just like bam, bam, bam. This is how it is. Must be that red dragon energy that you're carrying with you. Let's have a little playtime.
Mm,
So
yeah,
I asked Fabian to pull out her dragon cards, and this is a perfect foray into the dragon cards. So let's play with those
yes,
and see what comes up.
absolutely. I'm going to start shuffling as I speak, but I want to explain about these cards. So I connected to this beautiful soul sister, Gayatri Singh.
Oh my
She's
gosh, I'm supposed
wonderful.
to talk to her soon.
She will tell you all about these cards. They're
Yes, it's
amazing.
because of the dragons I want to talk to her so bad.
Yes, yes, yes. So she will tell you in depth more about these cards, but I'll
Oh,
just
good.
briefly just give you a bit of a background. She was guided to paint these dragons, and
Mm,
she herself says, "I'm not a painter. I'm not an artist. I don't know how to." But they said, "Do it. Just do it. We'll guide you." And so she did, and she birthed a whole deck of dragon oracle cards, right?
mm,
And her connection to the dragons is just so there are no English 3D words for this
yeah.
all-encompassing energy that she has, birthed in this one. Okay, so the card that I've picked, let's see, is acceptance.
Uh-oh, maybe put your hand
Acceptance.
behind it because it's disappearing. There
There
we
we go.
go.
Yeah. So if you can see,
Oh, that's like
okay.
a black dragon with a third eye
It's a black
shining there.
dragon with like a star on a third eye.
Yeah,
Really
beautiful.
powerful. And again, I think this ties together really beautifully about what I've been saying. Acceptance of yourself, acceptance of all parts of yourself, right? The shadow parts, the dark parts, all of it is a part of you that needs to be loved, right?
Mm,
So another thing that we're saying is like, there's this concept of the demons and Satan and all of that, right? It is in divine will that we have the freedom of choice, we have free will to have created all of that because it is purposeful, because it gives us the perspective and point of reference to experience ourselves in the highest levels of divinity that we are, if we can also experience ourselves in the lowest levels of shadow that we also are.
Yeah. How would we know what one is without the other?
Correct.
You,
Right?
you need it both.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they showed me this, because you know how the number sixes is like demons, like 666
Yeah.
is demonic and satanic. But it's like what they showed me, right? The six, when you literally draw a six, you go down to the depths. And then what happens? You come around and you come full circle and you just keep going, right? So for many, when we perceive the six or perceive the shadow, we just come down and we stay there. We don't complete the circle. When you complete the circle, you remember your divinity. You come back to the light. You reclaim yourself and you go home. I really believe all roads lead home. It doesn't matter which path you take.
Yeah.
In the acceptance of self, all roads lead home. This is the message today.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. You want to pull another one, or do you want to do some light language?
I would be happy to do a light language blessing. And I'm not sure which lineage of my light language expression will come forth. So I will just tap in and see, because it might not be the dragons. So if I just center and ground and just ask. All of you are loved without exception. All of you are blessed without exception. We see all of you and we are embracing all of you. No one gets left behind. Hastaruna karata sangitino kurta paikai. La rusunda ka ai sataru. Mai karu sumba kiai. Maatur. Haasai yumbatar. Horumbiki yasakai yunari. Nainga sartu sumbati hambaru be sakurtu pu yinara tapai ki ai kaganara tapasai humbasa astarawum. Be not afraid of the shadow of the darkness. We will hold your hand and carry you through back into the light. Trust, surrender into your own unique process of your divine timing. We are here and you cannot fail. Darkia tu sunga ha, landa tu sunga hikara tu sumbia. We will be your warriors where you cannot, until you can rise in your own warriorship and hold yourself in your strength and courage that you were born with. Ikarta paiki. And when you can fully stand in your glory, you will create from your divinity, create from the deepest fathoms of your loving heart, create and rebirth yourself anew in every moment, through every breath, through the breath, through the inspiration. You can explode across the universe, rippling far out into the void of infinity. And in your exhale, you can implode and come right home to the core of who you are. You are safe. You are held. You are needed. Rise, brothers and sisters. Rise, for it is time. We honor you.
Wow. What lineage was that? Do you know?
That felt like a mix. The dragons were there in the background. A lot of the is a lot of the dragons, but that message and the energy and the activation from that was more of the Arcturians.
I
Mm.
think I met one of your soul sisters on a podcast a few weeks ago. She lives right down the
Oh,
road from me. I'll have to connect you two when we're off here.
okay. Amazing.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
So, wow, you are amazing, Fabian. It has been such a joy to have you on here today. I would love for you to share with everybody if you have anything coming up that they might be interested in, how they can find you. I'll also put that information below in the description box.
Amazing. Yes. The way to work with me, I do group coaching or one-to-one journeying, and it's a 6-month program where we really dive into the shadows, where you reclaim your loving wisdom with the help of your team, your higher self, your inner child, and ego. We rebirth yourself through sacred womb and yoni work as we really reclaim, excuse me, the loving essence of your powerful creation self and really restore the divine feminine codes of creation and also restore the divine masculine codes, right? As we really come into balance with these both aspects, these powerful aspects of self that have been distorted for so long. And then once we have done the shadow work and created space for your infinite expansion, we then move into light language, really activating and reconnecting to your light language expression. And for many, this will look very different. You know, I have shared my spoken light language today. You may have also seen the hand and body movements, but light language expresses itself in many different ways. It's soul language. So for many, it comes through in written form. There's many artists who express, you know, their light language through art, drawing, painting. It can also be sung. You know, singing is so powerful because I like to call it the harmonics of your soul. When you start reclaiming these pieces of self and integrate them back to wholeness, each one of those experiences creates a tone, a vibration, a frequency. And when you start collecting them, they become a symphony for the harmonics of your soul to be fully expressed. It's so beautiful.
Oh, it sounds amazing.
So,
Sounds amazing.
yeah.
Oh, Fabian, thank you so much for being here today. It was such a pleasure. We'll have to do this again.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, your generosity, Linda. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. We'll say goodbye to everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.